Welcome to Brewers Daily. I'm your host, Dave Gasper. Lots to get to on the show here today on this Tuesday because we're still here in the thick part of the off season. Lots of stuff going to be trying to get done here between now and Christmas. So it's going to be certainly a busy time of year here, and we're going to see a lot of players end up signing here in the next little bit. I want to get to a potential free agent target for the Brewers, a potential trade target for the Brewers as well, with some rumors out there. But I want to start by kind of running down the current state of the Brewers' pitching depth because after the trade over the weekend, where Nick Mears gets sent out, Angel Zerpa comes in, and Matt Arnold says, "Oh, he's potentially a starter here as well." I want to just kind of reset where things are at with the pitching staff and the depth there because, again, you can never have too much depth when it comes to pitching. We saw last year that depth got eaten away very early on in spring training. So you can never have too many guys. So I just kind of want to run down where things are at with this group because Serpa as a starter potentially is a very interesting possibility to add him to this mix because the Brewers already have a ton of starting pitchers, a ton of depth there, even on their 40-man roster that they could go with for that rotation. So I just want to kind of run down where we're at here because by my count, if we're including Serpa here, there's 13 starting pitchers potentially on this 40-man roster right now. So, I mean, going down the line, you have Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff atop easily. Quinn Priester, Jacob Mizorowski right after that. I'd have to imagine those four are your locks for the starting rotation. And then you get the whole glut of guys. You got Chad Patrick, Aaron Ashby, DL Hall, Tobias Myers, Logan Henderson, Robert Gasser, Coleman Crow, Carlos Rodriguez, and now Angel Serpa, who are all going to be competing for rotation spots this spring. All these guys are going to end up getting stretched out potentially. I mean, the fact that Matt Arnold said that they like him potentially as a starter means there's a very good chance he starts to get stretched out in spring training. So if he's getting stretched out, all these other guys are getting stretched out. That's 13 starting pitchers on the 40-man roster. Now, granted, again, not all those guys can make that group right away. Your top four are pretty well locked in with Peralta, Woodruff, Priester, and Miz. And then your final spot, your leg up is going to go to guys like Chad Patrick, Aaron Ashby, DL Hall, and Tobias Myers because they have that major league experience. But also Logan Henderson and Robert Gasser are big-time prospects. Gasser is left-handed. Ashby and Hall are left-handed. Your top four starters are all right-handed, so that could give them a leg up as well when we get to spring training and trying to line up a rotation for the regular season. You're going to probably want one lefty in there at least, and those guys could make the most sense. But that's your starting pitching. You have 13 there on the 40-man roster. And then you look at the bullpen. So if we're including all those other guys here for the rotation, the bullpen almost seems kind of a little bit thin on depth. I'm counting Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe, Jared Koenig, Angel Serpa, who I think will most likely be in the bullpen. You got Grant Anderson, Rob Zastryzny, Craig Yoho, Easton McGee, and Sammy Peralta, who is a waiver claim towards the end of the year. So that's 9 guys for your bullpen. So you got 13 for the rotation at the moment. You got 9 true kind of, relievers that you're expecting to be. I mean, really 8 if you're thinking Serpa as a starter. I still ultimately think he's going to end up being a reliever. But still, that's not quite as many guys. I mean, your bullpen is going to be running 8 deep normally. And you have 9 regular relievers, and your rotation runs 5 deep, and you got 13 potential starting pitchers. Now, obviously, for some of those guys that end up missing the starting rotation, they're going to end up taking 1 or 2 of those bullpen spots as the long relievers. Leverage long guys, however Pat Murphy wants to call it. But, there's a chance Aaron Ashby ends up back in that bullpen spot, or DL Hall ends up out of the bullpen as well. Chad Pat, like any of those guys, if they end up missing that 5th spot in the rotation, provided, again, everyone's healthy, knock on wood, they're likely going to be in that bullpen. But still, it's kind of a little thin on that bullpen depth a little bit. So maybe they could stand to add 1 or 2 more for that bullpen group. You swapped out Mears for Serpa. So, it's just kind of a 1-for-1 deal. You didn't really gain anything in terms of additional depth. You just kind of change pitchers who you think is going to be better next year. And the Brewers clearly think they can work with Serpa and they like what he brings. So that's a possibility, but that's where the depth is kind of at. The bullpen, maybe a little bit thin on those one inning guys, on those really kind of strict traditional relievers. But I mean, if they're serious about including Serpa for that rotation group, that's 13 that they end up having on the 40-man roster that will be competing and getting stretched out in camp. And even if you don't, even if you do move them just to the bullpen, that's still 12 starters that you got lined up on this 40-man. So they certainly seem to be in a pretty good spot there. But again, that can go away quickly. So now I kind of want to move to, potentially what the market could be having here, because we're going to see some things moving in the next couple of days. And one of the things that seems to be moving right now is potentially Ketel Marte as a trade candidate. It seems like the Diamondbacks are wanting to move him. There certainly seems to be a lot of interest in him being moved. And we just saw from Ken Rosenthal the teams that are on the no trade list for Ketel Marte. Now, he doesn't have the full no trade clause that will come early next season when he gets 10-5 rights, 10 years in the big leagues, 5 with the last 5 with the same team. He's not going to get that until next season starts. But his current 5-team no trade list with his contract: the Athletics, the Yankees, the Pirates, the Giants, and the Cardinals. Now, the Athletics and Pirates, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I don't think anyone really wants to go there. Cardinals, I mean, okay, cool, sweet. He doesn't like the Cardinals, fine by me. Yankees and Giants, interesting choices. But the point is, the Brewers are not one of the teams on that list. So he could, be traded to the Brewers, and he could have no way to stop it. Now, would that make sense, though, for the Brewers to do? Because there's all the stuff about Ketel Marte and Granny's second baseman. The Brewers seem to be pretty well set at second base with Bryce Terang. He's quite good. And when we talked to Pat Murphy, he wasn't really thinking of switching out Bryce Terang and Joey Ortiz, moving Terang over to short. Now, granted, any sort of addition of someone like Ketel Marte may change that idea, but still, as much as there's that possibility that you could move Terang over to short, you get a Ketel Marte, and then you really have a strong offensive middle infield with that group. I mean, he would certainly help out the Brewers lineup quite a bit. But with his contract, I mean, with him getting $100 million plus $102.5 million over the next 6 seasons, he's already 32 years old. He's already on the wrong side of 30. He does have a bunch of money in deferrals, which can bring down the average annual value, brings down the current paycheck. But still, I think with that kind of contract, the Brewers are not going to be willing to offer what it would take to get Ketel Marte. Now, they have what the Diamondbacks are probably going to be looking for. The Diamondbacks, they're looking for some young starting pitching, which the Brewers, again, as we've just kind of run down here with this rotation, they have got plenty of young starting pitching. The Diamondbacks want young, major league ready players for Marte. That's kind of what they're looking for. And the Brewers have a bunch of young, major league ready players. Some are blocked at the big league level. Some are just kind of coming into their own. I mean, that's where you look at, maybe someone like Isaac Collins, even though Collins is going to be 29 next year. It's still like guys like that who are major league ready, and like they're young and they can find their way onto a roster and be a big piece for the next couple of seasons. That's what the Brewers have a ton of. So they could theoretically put together a trade package that would be enough to get Ketel Marte. But I don't think they're going to want to. Just with, number one, the contract, and number two, the clubhouse issues. I mean, there have been reports of him having clubhouse issues out there in Arizona. His house got broken into at the All-Star break last year, and he took a couple of days off, kind of telling the team that he wanted to kind of get things together. But instead, he was hanging out in the Dominican Republic for a couple of days. And then finally came back, and there were apparently some issues with that clubhouse out in Arizona that they had with Marte, which kind of might speak to why the Diamondbacks are so willing to move him right now, despite the fact that he has been so good for them. So with those clubhouse issues, the Brewers very much value their clubhouse culture. It is incredibly important to them to make sure that they get the right kind of people. They tell us that all the time. Pat Murphy says it all the time. Matt Arnold says it all the time. The players say it all the time. It is about getting the right who. It is about getting the right people in there because that is so important. That culture that they have built in that Brewers clubhouse is so critical to them and their success. They're not going to want to do anything to upset that. So they want to make sure that someone's going to be a very good clubhouse influence before they acquire him. And the reports on Ketel Marte are that he's not. So if you're thinking, yeah, Ketel Marte may make a great addition to the Brewers lineup, he may end up being a net negative for the team if they were to pull a trigger on a trade. So I'm not expecting the Brewers to get heavily involved at all in Ketel Marte. If you're thinking that they might, I'd probably move on to a different potential candidate. Now, one candidate that might fit the Brewers a little bit more is Munetaka Murakami, who is a free agent coming over from Japan, being posted this year. His posting window ends on the 22nd, so we're coming up under a week here, where Murakami is going to end up having to pick his team for next season. And he's someone who might fit the Brewers if they're looking for an upgrade over a Caleb Durbin at third base. Which the Brewers traded Isaac Collins when he was coming off a great rookie season. Now they traded Williams to get Durbin, so I'm not necessarily expecting them to move off him. But we talk about how the Brewers need power in this lineup. They don't have enough home run power. They need to add some to this group if they're going to be successful in the postseason. Whatever it is, however you want to describe it, power is an area that the Brewers are currently lagging on offense. I mean, they've done well in pretty much everything else on offense except hitting for home runs. And Munetaka Murakami has as much raw power as anyone. He's a corner infielder. He's someone who can just hit absolute tanks, and you could put him at third base in Milwaukee. I'm not sure where his defense rates, because defense is also something that's incredibly important to the Brewers. But Murakami, it seems like his market has been somewhat slow. There are some concerns about swing and miss issues, which the Brewers aren't necessarily going to be big fans of. Maybe could temper their interest, but I also think it's going to temper his market in terms of what his contract could end up being. Because yes, he has the big raw power, but can he hit the velocity? Is he going to strike out too much? He struck out at about a 25% clip in Japan. Shohei Ohtani was at around 27%, and Shohei Ohtani's ended up being pretty darn good. I'd say. I mean, Seiya Suzuki was at like 16% when he came over for his strikeout rate. So again, there could be some elevated strikeouts here with Murakami, but he might actually make some sense as a potential fit. If that market is down enough, if the Brewers believe he's going to be a legitimate enough upgrade over Caleb Durbin, and if they are really seeking that power addition, I mean, if it's really the goal of Matt Arnold to drastically improve the power of this lineup and bring in a thumper for this group. Because currently, I mean, who's really their thumper? I mean, Christian Yelich, 29 home runs last year. William Contreras has been a pretty good thumper, although he lost a bunch of his power in the first half of last season with a finger injury. So, they could stand to add a little bit more power if that's truly an area of concern for Matt Arnold. I think Murakami would make basically the most sense for them to target as a free agent addition because he can fit there in the corner infield at third base, potentially first. Now, I know you got Andrew Vaughn over there, but still, it's a spot that you could put him, and he'd bring that power, he'd bring that juice to the lineup. And it could be somewhat affordable for him, too, because he's not an up-the-middle guy. He's a corner infielder. And there are those concerns that may bring down the contract value, which may bring it into a range that the Brewers would actually be able to afford, or at least that they'd be interested in actually paying. So Murakami may be a name to watch. I've not seen any sort of actual connection between the Brewers and Murakami, but it still could be one to watch here over this next week as his posting window ends on the 22nd. And finally here, just kind of with the Brewers trade rumors, how things are shaping up here on the market. I mean, there's still Freddie Peralta as a possibility. There's still Trevor McGill as a possibility that could end up getting moved. There were the rumors that the Brewers looking to trade from their outfield depth. That's where Collins and Blake Perkins and Garrett Mitchell were both mentioned as well. Although I think with the Collins move, that's going to kind of be it for the Brewers dealing from their outfield depth. And I think the Brewers are going to end up sticking with Perkins and Mitchell out there in center field, and just hoping Mitchell can get back to full strength and having a fully healthy season this next year, because they know when he is healthy, he can be absolutely electric out there. So I think that's going to be it from the Brewers' outfield depth. Shipping Collins out, you got Padu in to replace him. I think they're sitting in a really good spot there. So I'm not expecting much more movement on that front, but still the pitching front, Freddie Peralta is still very much possibility to get moved. Trevor McGill is still very much possibility to get moved before the reliever market fully closes up here, or at least dries up for the next little bit, because the reliever market always tends to go hot and heavy pretty early on here in the offseason. And then once all the big names go, the reliever market just completely dries up until you get to like late January. And it's just kind of everyone that's left just signing where they can, whether it's a minor league deal or a league minimum major league deal, wherever it is, just settling for 1 year deals in order to just get into a camp. As teams kind of look at their bullpen depth later in the offseason, it generally dries up until then. So while the going is still hot, it's still a possibility that he ends up getting moved here. So we've got to keep an eye on that. And we'll see what Matt Arnold has up his sleeve here, because I've got a feeling he's not quite done yet. There's still going to be some more things going on. And especially here before Christmas, everyone's going to be wanting to get some stuff in that they've already got down the line. So I would expect some more things to happen here this week, and we'll have them all covered for you here on Brewers Daily. And be sure to follow me on Twitter as well at dgasper24, and we'll keep at it every single day, keeping you updated and giving you the best analysis that you will be able to find. So be sure to subscribe to Brewers Daily here, and never miss an episode. So thank you for listening. This has been Brewers Daily.